All right, everybody. Welcome into another Green with MB game recap. The Boston Celtics keep it rolling, a 127-112 victory over the Phoenix Suns. We're going to break it all down for you coming up here on Green with Envy. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy post-game recap. The Boston Celtics take down the Phoenix Suns 127-112, back on that 4-game winning streak life. 52 wins in the books. Celtics waiting on the results here of that Philadelphia game. If Philadelphia loses, playoff spot secure. Either way, magic number down to 7 already to clinch the number 1 seed. Here to break it all down of course, I'm your boy Will Weir. I'm here to break it down with me is my homie, my best friend, coach of the podcast, all of the above. It's Greg Benakis. What's good, man? It's just a crazy season this team is having right now.
Crazy season. So, Will, we did a pre-game podcast, right? We previewed this podcast with Adam, our boy Adam. For those of you that are listening on the pod, you're going to hear what we talked about at the end of this section right here, because a lot of it was kind of not just related to the game Celtics Suns, but at the end, we made predictions. And I called Boston Celtics by...
Did you say 15?
15. I said Boston Celtics by 15 points. It's rare that your boy is right to that specificity, but I was right today. I said the Phoenix Suns were not on the Boston Celtics level. And why would they be? This is only their 25th game or 24th game with their big three together.
Yeah,
so
25th, don't have 15 and 10. Yeah, 15 and 10 with the big three for the Phoenix Suns. Currently 7th place in the West as we await some of the results that will finish up tonight. It's kind of that jumbled up part of the West where things shift on a night-to-night basis. But yeah, Suns just were not on the Celtics level. No Kristaps Porzingis. 4th straight game with no KP in the Celtics lineup. Also, 4th straight win for the Boston Celtics, getting it done with not even being at full strength. But with that, let's jump into a morning box score here, and we'll set this all up from the jump. Celtics 127, Phoenix Suns 112. Let's start with those Phoenix Suns. Kevin Durant came out with this game red hot. I think either 6 of 7 or 7 of 8 to start the game. However, only finishes with 20 points despite, I think, 15 of those coming in the first quarter. He was 9 of 19 overall. Bradley Beal, 9 of 17 for 22 points, 7 assists for him. Devin Booker, only 9 of 20, 1 of 6 from the three-point land, 23 points and 7 assists for him. Grayson Allen did have 8 of 9, 4 of 5 from 3, 20 points for him. And then Yusuf Nurkic, just to point it out here, to have 20 rebounds in this game. Nurkic is a rebounding monster at 30 rebounds about a week or so ago against the Thunder. But let's head over to the Celtics, where Jaylen Brown, once again, just having a monster second half. I want to talk a lot more about him. 14 of 23 from the field, 5 of 9 from 3, 37 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, only 1 turnover. Keep remembering that, folks. Only 1 turnover. Jaylen Brown has gotten really good at limiting those turnovers, which I know have been a big issue in the past. Jayson Tatum, 10 of 18 from the field, 4 of 8 from 3, 26 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists for him. Al Horford, throwback game, 8 of 14 from the field, 6 of 10 from 3. He finishes with 24 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and a block. Derek White, 13 points, 8 rebounds. Jrue Holiday, stat line, not necessarily going to jump out at you. Did have 9 points and 10 assists. However, I thought this might have been one of Jrue Holiday's best defensive games of the year. Felt like he was everywhere in this game. Definitely want to touch on that a little bit more here. And then from the bench, you get some solid outputs here from Sam Hauser, Luke Cornett, Peyton Pritchard, Xavier Tillman, all chipping in different ways. And we talked about the different ways in which, especially that Luke Cornett and Xavier Tillman split might be used down the stretch. I think what you're going to hear in the second half of this podcast, for those of you listening on the audio version, we talked a lot about getting a look at all of the guys together with that main core unit. We got that tonight, and I really enjoyed that breakdown from Coach Mazzulla. But Greg, tonight, Celtics shot the lights out, 25 of 50 from the three-point line. there's almost no chance you're beating this team if they're shooting that hot from three. What stood out to you from this game tonight?
I'd say the amount of open threes that the Celtics were generating and wide open threes, particularly. The Suns just didn't have any idea what to do with the Celtics. It was interesting because early in the game, the Celtics really tried to punish the Suns inside with not much success. But, it did kind of speak to the mindset of the Celtics early on in the game. They recognized they had the physical advantage. Jaylen Brown tried to get to the post a few times, and then he ended up like that one play on Bradley Beal where he just sent him flying into the baseline, finishing with the and one. Jaylen is I know you want to talk about Jaylen, but just overall as a team, I thought the Celtics process was great. We talked on the pregame pod about wanting to see what the Celtics end up spamming in fourth quarters down the stretch. This wasn't a close game, but they did go to that Horns flare action about 4 possessions in a row with Tatum, Brown, and White all in different parts of that Horns action. So I really like seeing that out of them. But I think we do have to start with Jaylen, right?
Yeah, let's go to Jaylen. I mean, Jaylen has just been so special in this second half since the All-Star break over the last 10 games he's played out of the 11 games that the Celtics have had here. Just a reminder, 37 points in this one, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, only that 1 turnover. And I love that you brought up him actually getting denied on the first couple possessions in which he tried to go down low. And I was like, okay, the Suns remembered that he just kind of put everyone through the basket in previous games where he's been doing that across the NBA. And they kind of stood up to the task at the beginning. But him doing that, Tatum getting downhill, opened up some of the outside shooting. And then once those shots went in, the floodgates were open. And Jaylen Brown, then, like you said, just was shaking people off. He had everything going. This is one of those nights where it felt like Jaylen Brown could have taken any shot. There was specifically that one shot in the second half where he was kind of a little bit out. One of the few times he was a little bit out of control, found himself in the middle of the lane, shot clock running down, throws up a fadeaway with kind of 3 purple jerseys around him, and it just went in. It was just that type of night for Jaylen Brown.
You know what I've been thinking a lot about with JB after last season, struggling in the postseason, and thinking about who he was trying to prepare himself for this season, right? Like which players around the NBA did he be like, okay, I need to get to the level where I know I can match up with him and feel like I'm not at a physical disadvantage. And as I was watching the game tonight, I just thought about Jimmy Butler, man. I just thought about like what happens if the Celtics see the Heat in the playoffs, because Jimmy has bullied the Celtics, right?
Yeah.
We had Grant Williams try to stand up to him, Marcus try to stand up to him, but Jaylen's really the guy that is like the same physical build as Jimmy, and at this point he might even be bigger and stronger than Jimmy is. So like as I'm watching Jaylen play tonight, and this is a guy that Jaylen has worked out with plenty in the past and early in his career as well, I just think that Jaylen's game, the physicality is starting to remind me of the physicality of Jimmy Butler. Then you add the 3-point shooting that Jimmy doesn't really always go to. When Jaylen's feeling it to this degree from 3, like he was smiling. Anytime he shot the ball from 3, he was just like smiling at the camera, right. Like, what you going to do with me? What you gonna do? I can take you into the post. I can bully you. I can come out here and hit the 3. I'm also not turning the ball over. I'm playing some of the best defense of my life. Like that one play, dude, where Jaylen, it was like they were trying to do a entry pass into Jokic. I'm not Jokic, Nurkic in the post, and Jaylen just like extendo arm, octopus arm, grabbed the ball with his left hand and stole it.
Oh, dude, that was I remember that like kind of got me off my couch a little bit when he did that.
That was a Kawhi play.
Yeah, because that's one of those plays where you don't even think twice about it watching. It's like, oh, it's an entry pass. That makes it in there every time. Maybe if, like, in a rare instance, they'll tip it out of bounds. He straight up Kawhi'd it. Calvin Johnson did with one hand. He mossed it, right? That was the Randy Moss pulling that down.
You know what? It's funny. You know how there's that that Twitter thing where people will post like, who has that one Jaylen Brown clip? Or like, who has that one Michael Jordan clip? And it'll just be like a random ass video of like whatever person they say.
Oh, yeah.
But with Jaylen, we've already mentioned like 3, that one Jaylen Brown play they did. But then that one Jaylen Brown play where he missed the 3 and then had the steal in transition and then yammed it on Grayson Allen to put an exclamation point. That was the game, right? That was when the Suns took all their players out.
Yeah. That was go home, Phoenix. Thank you for stopping by. Jaylen Brown just sealing the game right there. Yeah, just another high level game from Jaylen. I will say, at halftime, it seemed inevitable we were getting a 30 for 30 from the Jays. Tatum cooled off, but wasn't necessarily needed. So Tatum cooled off a little bit in that second half. So we fall a little bit short. 37 for Jaylen, 26 for Tatum, who also played an exceptional, especially in the first half, was extremely exceptional. Had an all
You know what,
around
Will?
game.
I was thinking about as we were watching the game. You mentioned in the pregame pod. I'm going to keep mentioning the pregame here because I want everyone to start coming to the pregames Thursday. Every Thursday, we're doing a live stream at 5 Eastern, 4 Central. So we were on there. We had great chat engagement. Basically, anytime we're doing the Thursday live stream, it's going to be open to the chat. What you guys want, what you want to talk about. And one thing that you had mentioned in that is that you wanted to see if Jayson Tatum was going to continue to play first quarters. And one thing, as I was thinking about it, I was like, why is Tatum starting to play full first quarters? And one of the things I'm thinking is the matchups and the substitution patterns of the other team. It seemed like Joe Mazzulla was trying to match Tatum's minutes with Durant's minutes, and Durant is like widely known for wanting to always play the first quarter. So I'm wondering if it's like specifically because of the way that other teams are subbing. That's why Tatum is starting to play the first quarter. It's just something to think about.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And the two of them have been compared in the past too, right? As like, what is Tatum's highest potential as a player? It's something in the form of Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's, an all-time great, and I don't think Tatum's there, but he's certainly trending, in that directional. So I do think that's interesting to note, and their minutes do basically match up for this 33 to 34 as far as what they played. And obviously towards the end of the game that shifted a little bit, but that will be something I'm definitely keeping an eye on going forward here. Let's go to there's two other guys I really want to talk about. Do you want to go Al Horford or Jrue Holiday next?
Before we go to those two guys, because I do want to talk about them, we also talked about earlier today about how we wanted to see Tatum really go to the next level in like the superstar versus superstar matchup. And in the first quarter today, when Durant came out on fire and Tatum was matching his minutes, he was also
15 to 14, I believe. I think it was scoring was. Yeah.
And that's what we wanted to see out of Tatum. And in the second half, like Jaylen took over, and it was one of those times where it's like, all right, yeah, JB, just like take us home, dude. You're playing unbelievable. I don't even have to do anything right now because you're just on an all NBA level, which Jaylen Brown, I think, is definitely playing himself into that all NBA conversation.
That will be a conversation I want us to flesh out maybe sometime next week as we start to hit some of these Wizards and Hawks games. We can fill some space with an all NBA discussion, because I think that's starting to get really interesting with Jaylen.
Let's talk about Horford though.
But let's go to Al, because Al 8 of 14, 6 of 10 from 3, 24 points. Hey, this is what you get when you get arrested, Al. I feel like every time Al gets a few days off, we get this massive throwback game. So you give Al 2-3 days off, doesn't play the back-to-back, gets an extra day of rest, and you always seem to get a little bit more of a spry Al. And let's throw this in there. I mean, he didn't have the rebounding numbers. Nurk got him on the boards a bit, but 3 assists and 3 steals and a block to go along with that three-point shooting. It sometimes gets a little bit forgotten, because when we talk about the high-end talent on this team, he's a part of it, but he's the last part of it, right? When you kind of separate the 6 and then you get to like the bench, it's really 6 starters almost, as the Celtics are framing it. He's that 6th guy, but it's sometimes forgotten. This guy is going to be so effing important when we get to the playoffs, and to see him have the shooting stroke like he did tonight, I just think that's massive for this team as they look forward to the playoffs, knowing that, this is your 6th guy that you're looking to that just had 24 points and 6 threes in this game.
I love when you randomly decide to censor yourself.
Well, I feel like I could swear way more often, and this is me.
You're working on it.
Yeah, but I'm probably gonna say the F word in about, I don't know. Let's set the over under at 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, but Horford was great, man. Wide open threes all night. It was interesting to see at the start of the second half, the Suns were trying to figure out how are we going to limit the Celtics offense, and they made a switch by putting Nurkic on Holiday to start the second half. So they switched up the matchups, and then what we ended up doing was trying to take advantage of Horford in the post on Grayson Allen a couple times, because they started Grayson Allen on Al Horford. Like, that's just not going to work, right? And you just can't guard Al with the small. So I thought that was an interesting pivot by Frank Vogel there that was his adjustment to put Nurkic on Holiday. And like the Celtics, it was just easy.
I mean, that's
money.
kind of
The
the Suns'
Celtics got
issue,
whatever they
though,
wanted.
in a nutshell, right? They don't have any answers when they need to switch stuff up on defense because you're going to have those three guys out there. Then you got Allen and Nurkic to your next guys. So it's just, do you want to flip them? What do you do with like who you put them on?
Yeah, and then once they realized they couldn't guard Al with the small, they started covering him with the big again, and then he was back out in the perimeter, just knocking down threes, doing whatever he wanted to do. So this was a great game by Al. Had a couple nice trips on Kevin Durant, blocked him once, stripped him once. So Al was just all over the place. And, we were talking earlier about would the Celtics potentially rest Porzingis in the playoffs, right? It'd be interesting to see, if the Celtics have a 2-0 lead and Horford's played a bunch of minutes in one game in the playoffs, when you see the level that he plays at when he's fully rested, like, hey, maybe we sit Al Horford in the playoffs for a game. Like maybe it would probably be like 3-0 or 3-1, but like to make sure that Al is super rested, because last year in the playoffs, he just wasn't. He was worn down and he ran out of gas in the last 2 playoffs, really.
It's tough. I mean, I think if everyone's healthy, everyone's just playing. That's probably my general stance on it for
right.
the
maybe it's like Al only plays 15 minutes one night instead of
right.
Of
that's where I think it could be a little bit different, where it's like, hey, usually we're gonna go with Al 25 minutes. Whether this is more of a Cornet or a Tillman series, maybe they get 10 minutes in this next game to try to give some fresher legs. I definitely think that that would that could be possible come playoff time. Let's go to Jrue Holiday here, man. Jrue Holiday tonight, I thought was unbelievable on defense. I think he was. It felt like he was just switching on to everybody. Felt like he guarded every single one of the Suns' big players at different points. It says he only has 4 stocks in here. I feel like if we go find the data for whether it's him deflections, creating jump balls, like it's got to be more than that. Like it feels like more than that. And so I'm curious, once we get some of the tracking data, we're doing this right after the game,
shot
like 5-10 minutes afterwards.
Deflections, all that stuff for sure.
He was everywhere, whether it was, man up defense, whether it was him cutting off the snake, him chasing down from behind. I mean, I think every type of defensive play you could imagine, Jrue Holiday found a way to do that today, contesting at the rim. This to me was, Derek White also had a great defensive game, but when you think about this team, like I think Derek White's play has probably stood out a little bit more just from an obvious standpoint. But then you remember Jrue Holiday, this was an all NBA defensive player of the year when we had Marcus Smart. These are the type of games where I'm like, God damn, I can't believe we have Jrue Holiday on our team playing defense.
Right. And then 3 for 5 from 3. He's been money all year from 3. The Marcus comparisons that people were trying to make arguments for, even like sometimes myself, I was like, like how much, like how, I know it's an upgrade, but how much of an upgrade is it actually? Holiday's just he looks so at home now with this team, completely free to just do whatever the hell he wants on defense. I love how Mazzulla has empowered him there. And then, shooting 64% from the corners. Every time Jrue Holiday shoots a 3, I'm expecting it to go in at this point. It's just so money. He's always wide open. He's just playing his role to perfection for this team. And he's the perfect fit, man. He really is.
Yeah. I don't really have much else to say on Holiday. I was just kind of amazed by it. Like I said, stat line isn't probably going to jump out at you. The 10 assists might jump out a bit, but it was just an amazing defensive performance from him, plus 26 on the night. And then just, the last thing I think we should just hit on here is just because we talk about this once again. For those of you listening on the audio version, you'll hear us get into this for probably about 10 to 15 minutes where we kind of talk about Luke versus Tillman and Luke and Tillman and who's going to play when. And I thought tonight, we got Tillman for 18 minutes. We got Luke for a little under 12. And I think early on in the game, Luke got the first call, and then Tillman played most of that second quarter, third quarter before Luke came back at the beginning of the fourth. And I think a lot of that was, we've talked before, Tillman, especially love it when you play him and Al together. It's even funnier. But when you play them out there, you get 2 guys that can play up to the level of that screen. And when you're going up against Beal and Booker and Durant and those guys who want to get to the mid-range, you get having a guy play drop is just asking for trouble, right? If you guys playing as deep of a drop, and those guys can then, if Cornet's going to come up, they're going to blow right by Cornet, right? And so with Tillman, there was a play in the first half that really stood out to me where he got ISO'd by Devin Booker on the left wing and hung with him the entire time. Tillman was right there on him. And I can't remember if Booker either missed the shot or had to pass it out the last second, but it was just one of those possessions where it's like, all right, this team, like with Tillman out here, look at how this versatility can flip on a dime as soon as Missoula, makes an adjustment, makes a change. And for me, that was a super big positive in a really small sample size.
Yeah, Tillman was great. I think when you go up against a team like the Suns, who don't really have any backup bigs that are traditional bigs, right? Nurkic is their only traditional big, where you definitely need somebody that can bang with him. And he had 20 rebounds. They tried Tillman on him in the first half. They tried Cornette on him in the first half. But in the second half, once Nurkic kind of came out of the game and they were playing more of a 5-out style, there really was no reason for Cornette to be in the game. And this is the same thing that we were saying with the Cavs game. It was like, why was Cornette in the game when the Cavs didn't have Mobley? When Mobley went down, that was Cornette's matchup in that first half. Once he was gone out of the game with that sprained ankle, Cornette shouldn't have seen the floor the rest of the game, right? It should have been Tillman. So I think that's a good learning experience, because you want to see from Joe the adjustments from game to game, where maybe he looks at the Cavs games like, yeah, I left Luke in there too long. That should have been X.
Exactly.
And it seems like tonight he recognized that and recognized it quickly.
Yeah. Unbelievable game from the Celtics here, 127-112 over the Suns. 4-game winning streak, 2 days off coming up here. They'll be back at it Sunday against the Wizards. That's going to do it for this post-game edition here of Green with Envy. For those of you listening on the audio, you are going to hear our pre-game show, which has a lot of content in there. Just kind of looking at the Celtics as we hit this playoff run. What does that playoff prep look like? A lot of questions from the audience. Once again, as Greg mentioned, every Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, we'll be doing a live stream on Twitter and YouTube. So make sure that you guys come join us, bring some questions. We really want to make those interactive as we hit the stretch run here. But that's going to do it for us here. So if you're watching on YouTube, we will catch y'all later. And for those of you on the audio, enjoy the second half of the podcast. Peace out, y'all.
Every time I get this high, I lose my mind. It don't take much no more until I hit the floor. Every time I get this high, it's you I find. It don't take much no more until I'm at your door.
You cut me to my core, baby. What can I say? You got me on the floor, you know I came to play. I know I shouldn't, but you seem to take my pain away. And every time I score, Jayson Tatum fade away. I close my eyes and I'm floating your river. I call to see if you open, you know I hope you deliver. Every time you're getting close, I still be sick with the shivers. But there's nothing like that first time. I still remember the first time I saw you. You were looking so